We're going to prune back a Dwarf Korean Lilac today that's been trained on a Japanese tree lilac root standard. If you take a look at the graft point here, you get that large swelling, and that's where they've introduced the scion wood has been grafted on to that reticulata tree trunk. Now this has just gotten a little bit too big for the homeowner, and you can tell too by looking at this retaining wall, it becomes very difficult to shear that. A lot of times when you want to prune a lilac, if you want to get blooms every year, you would prune this directly after it blooms. That allows new growth to form, a new flower bud, and you'll get bloom every year. Since we're going to be doing what I'm going to call a partial rejuvenation, we are going to take about 18 inches of this just to get the size a little bit more manageable. We're doing this in mid-May, and we've had a very late spring here. Normally I like to do this in March and April when it's in the dormant stage right before spring. So the timing's a little bit late, but we're still safe. After we're done pruning this, it's probably going to be about 2 to 3 weeks before we're going to notice that growth. All the new growth is going to have to come from latent buds further in, not the primary bud that you see here on the tips. Since we're up against this retaining wall, we're going to actually have to almost climb inside here and do our pruning within. It's all going to be handwork. It's really difficult to get in there with the Hedge shears or anything mechanical because you're going to do the tearing that pruning cut, and it's going to be just jagged and ugly. The other thing about mechanical pruning equipment, if you get pulled in to the shrub, you can create some pretty ugly looking shrubs quickly. They're just a little bit too powerful. Now, since this has been sheared many times over the years, it's all nested together. So as we go through, they'll just kind of cling together and those branches will drop out in groups. We'll go through and we're going to make some cuts where we know we're pretty close to that 18-inch cut back. And then once we get through the whole thing, we'll come back through and we'll kind of touch it up, and we might have to take back some of the primary branches just a little bit further. Dwarf Korean Lilac is definitely more common as a shrub, and its mature height, I've seen them get as much as 6 to 8 feet tall. They're oftentimes listed out at around that 3 to 4 foot level. Just a beautiful compact lilac. This is always just a little bit nerve-wracking when I'm talking to homeowners. I like to make sure they know that they're going to come back to a fairly scalped up tree. It's a patience game. This is going to be taking several weeks now for it to re-leaf. And you don't have to be perfect that first time around. We're doing what I call a rough cut. We're just going through, we're kind of getting close. We'll clean this up and tidy it up as we move along in the project. Oftentimes when we're pruning small trees like this, it's the shorter ladders where you gain the advantage. If you're on a taller ladder, it kind of kicks you out and you can't quite reach. You get a ladder to go underneath. Now you can get yourself right up inside this shrub. Coming right along. Yeah, this is going to turn out great. Okay, now we're going to work around the plant and we're going to look for some of the really large stubby cuts. We're going to try to prune those back in a little bit further. And as much as we can, we want to be left with a little bit more tender growth. You can see from the angle on the left there that we're just a little bit lopsided. So we're going to go through here, probably break out the pruning saw, and we'll take out one of these main lower branches here. And once we get this lower branch cut and pulled out of here, we'll make just a few more final cuts, and this project is going to be all but wrapped up. Yeah, we're looking nice and uniform all around our Dwarf Korean Lilac tree. It's going to be a lot easier to manage now with this smaller size. Here's a photo of our tree about 1 month later. It's leafing out nicely, and it's going to continue to thicken up throughout the summer. This is going to set flower bud for next year and be in beautiful show for next spring. Appreciate you watching this garden hike. We'll see you again soon.